Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. We have the Bojjhanga Ahara Sutta as the topic of our Sutra class for this evening. The Ahara Sutta is present in a number of versions. This is one of them. The Ahara Sutta, the basic teachings that is similar in all Ahara Sutras, is this four types of food that we have come across on multiple occasions before, which is Kabalinkar Ahara, Passa Ahara, Manosanchetana Ahara, and Vijnana Ahara. These four types of food, nutriment, is shown as the first type of food that we consume, Kabalinkar Ahara, the material food that is consumed. Passa Ahara is the contact that occurs in bringing object present or into the field of awareness. This first moment, the moment of passa, the moment of contact, gives rise to Vedana, that occurs at that moment with whatever object that arises, be it a pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. That Vedana arises as a result of this contact. Volition, Manosanchetana Ahara. Volition that arises springs the mind and behaviors forward from moment to moment. This volition that occurs is another sankhara, another cause for the arising of another condition. This volition fuels the karmic potency of this nama and rupa to spring forward through all the karmic dispositions that we give rise to. Consciousness, the reason for vijnana arising through clinging again and again, leading to continued existence and rebirth. Consciousness, vijnana ahara. Now, let us come down to the sutra for today, which presents the aharas in another interesting way. Bojjhanga Ahara Sutta, the discourse on food. At Savatthi, let me see with the okay. At Savatthi, bhikkhus, I will teach you regarding what is food and what is not food for the mental hindrances and for the 7 awakening factors. Listen to it. Now, the first category of food that we go across, the food that fuels the mental hindrances. And what bhikkhus is food for the arising of unarisen, lustful desire, kama chanda nivarana, and for the growth and abundance of arisen lustful desire. There is bhikkhu, the sign of the beautiful, Subha Nimitta, Subha Nimitta. Frequently giving unwise attention to it is food for the arising of unarisen lustful desire and for the growth and abundance of arisen lustful desire. Now, what do we understand as a subhanimitta in this case? Would anyone like to express what they think when it comes to Kama Chanda and then Subhanimitta? There is bhikkhus, the sign of the beautiful Subhanimitta. Can you tell a little bit more about it? Sujata? Oh,
Bhakti, I just know, I just want to, if you could enlarge the print a little bit, please.
yeah, oh, yes.
It's very, very faint to me. It's very,
Okay.
very,
Better, Sujata?
yes, that's okay for the moment. Yes, Bhakti. Thank you very much. Sorry to
Okay.
disturb the class.
Hare, Hare. Subhanimitta. Anuma, would you like to?
Subhanimitta is Bhante. It's an
Auspicious time?
object. It's an object. No, we get from five senses.
So it is an object.
Yes, we get from five sense doors. Could be.
So what kind of object? Who is the who determines
The
that it
mind.
is
The
Subhanimitta
mind.
or Asubhanimitta?
The mind determines.
The mind that takes the object.
Yes.
So the mind that takes the object.
Yeah.
So Kama Chanda, the food for Kama Chanda is a sign of the beautiful when the beholder takes an object as a Subha Nimitta. Take the object as a Subha Nimitta. Here, Subha inclining towards a sign of the beautiful. Sign of the beautiful. In a way that this beauty here connects to Kama Chanda. Now, when an object is present, what is the first Chetasika that reacts with the object? Do you remember? The first mental factor that reacts with the object. It is Vitaka. It is initial application, Vitaka, which goes and impinges upon the object that is present. The other factors now, this Vitaka that is launched from the mind, by the mind, it impinges with the object determined by what type of consciousness is present. When the consciousness takes the object as a Subha Nimitta, which is through ayonso mansikara, unwise attention, this can become food for the arising of kama chanda. This can become food for the arising of kama chanda. Now, a nimitta, an object can be beautiful. However, Subha Nimitta, this beauty is now taken through the lustful desire, through one of the eight Lobha Mula, greed-rooted consciousnesses, takes the object at that moment. That is when that Subha Nimitta now becomes an object of food for the arising or supporting of already arisen Kama Chanda. Kama Chanda. The second part, thank you, Anuma. And what bhikkhus is for the arising of unarisen ill will, vyapada. Right? For the arising of unarisen ill will and for the growth and abundance of arisen ill will. Arisen ill will. So It is referring to, if you note the two wording, it is referring to the two parts of that which is the opposite of right effort, isn't it? Right effort, Satara Samappadana. A rising of unarisen ill will and the growth and abundance of already arisen ill will. Right? That which attacks that virya that is made in the path. What fuels that? There is bhikkhus, the sign of the repulsive. The sign of the repulsive, when there is an object, a person, right? Patiga nimitta is when that, let us say a person in this case, is labeled as a patiga nimitta. Patiga nimitta. When that occurs, frequently giving unwise attention to it is food for the arising of unarisen ill will and for the growth and abundance of arisen ill will. When the person adheres again and again to the patiga nimitta, a sign, an object taken again and again through patiga, that leads to, fuels the arising of vyapada nivarana, the hindrance of ill will. The third, and what bhikkhus is food for the arising of unarisen sloth and torpor, thinamita, and for the growth and abundance of arisen sloth and torpor, growth and abundance of arisen sloth and torpor. There are bhikkhus, boredom, lethargy, fidgeting, after meal drowsiness, and mental sluggishness. Frequently giving unwise attention to them is food for the rising of unarisen sloth and torpor, and for the growth and abundance of arisen sloth and torpor. Right? Sloth and torpor. Here, if we try to understand it a little bit better, how does one frequently give unwise attention to boredom, lethargy, fidgeting, after meal drowsiness, and mental sluggishness? What do you think? How could a person frequently give unwise attention to such kind of mental states? What would it mean to give unwise attention to them? Dilsiri,
If you are having ionism manasikara, if you are in ionism manasikara, Bhante,
how? What kind of consciousness? In taking, frequently giving unwise attention to them is food for the arising of the unarisen sloth and torpor and the growth and abundance of sloth and torpor. So how does one truly give unwise attention to boredom, lethargy, fidgeting, after meal drowsiness, mental sluggishness?
so if you are in loba doha, if you are deluded with loba doha and moha, if you are in ignorance, then you don't realize that these things are unwholesome, and therefore, if the roots that you got are based on those, then after meals you will feel boredom, lethargy. If you eat too much after a meal, and if you are not having mindfulness to realize to eat mindfully and to eat only what is necessary and to reflect that food is only for the purpose of nourishment and to nourish the body so that that you can develop spiritually and it's also mind. Then you overeat and if you're not mindful and you have unwise attention, then rooted in greed and in moha, you will overeat and you become drowsy and mentally sluggish, Bhante.
So whilst the boredom is unfolding just as the drowsiness after a meal or mental sluggishness, as these mental states are unfolding within oneself, the unwise attention, giving of unwise attention is to the same mentality, or when that person is completely being drifted away in this state of boredom, lethargy, fidgetiness, in all of these conditions without any sati to hold that person going through. Then, now, as the Vedana of this becomes more and more, then sometimes a person becomes acquainted very closely with the feeling of lethargy. With the feeling of lethargy, with the feeling of boredom, with the feeling of liking this drowsiness after a meal. This
Bhante,
drowsiness.
sorry, Bhante, could it be avidya also?
It is avidya as well.
Yes.
It is avidya as well. So, avidya, for example, when the person is thinking, I mean, if it is, let us say, lethargy, for example, right? Believing within that state being the only state is also part of avidya. Hmm? When there is a state of mental sluggishness where one believes unreservedly in that mental sluggishness being the final is also part of avidya, where the mental sluggishness, there is no end seen to the mental sluggishness. There is no end seen to lethargy, right? Where this feeling of drowsiness is taken quite closely, where the person likes this feeling, this Vedana of being, the unwise attention arising through the consciousness in taking objects which again falls into drowsiness or mental sluggishness. That unwise attention proliferates the attachment that builds on to that particular Vedana that arises, the Vedana out of boredom or lethargy, or the Vedana of fidgeting, or the after meal drowsiness, or the mental sluggishness at any moment. That attachment builds on to that Vedana. The more the Vedana is taken as a part of Atma, self. So, the wise attention here is when a person is able to see it for what it is. See it for what it is. This is not to say that this is not to say that a person cannot rest. Remember, look at these states. This is nothing to do with resting, right? These are mental states. You can very well rest, and arahats also do rest, right? Very deeply. This is nothing to do with rest and doing nothing. This is a mental state that drags you inherently down, makes you weaker in your energy levels. Makes you weaker in your energy levels. And the more that one goes into building a sense of attachment to that Vedana, this is the Tina Middha Nivarana that is unfolding within you. Right? Unfolding within you. Now, even when it comes to, let us say, Tina Middha Nivarana, because of the attachment to this ajha, sort of nonchalant, lethargic, that sort of hindrance. When this hindrance occurs, One might think this only adheres to when one is sleeping or when one is drowsy or when one is after looking for a afternoon siesta. No, it is not only at those moments. Let us come down to what we have studied with the Abhidhamma, where we find Thina Midda, sloth and torpor arising within consciousnesses in our thoughts, where there is promptitude, where the mind or someone externally or yourself after deliberation has to push you to do it. Now, in so many occasions, when you take behaviors, when people, let us say, people would talk about a lot of things that they want to do, but when it comes to actually doing them, when it comes to actually making the decision of doing them, what holds them back? It could be an aspect of Teenamid as well that holds them back at that moment, where that lax attitude comes towards that nimitta, not allowing that person to make that jump in energy to finally do what one has been talking about. For example, as an example, Thinamita is not only whilst we think about this sort of sluggishness and drowsiness that we would have after a meal or when we are quite sleepy, this also comes into as a nivarana. This becomes far more insidious in the way that it affects our way of decision making, our way of interacting with certain objects, right? Interacting with objects. That Thina Midda is proliferated or supported or further nourished through the constant unwise attention that we give this mind, which is taken by boredom, lethargy, fidgeting, after meal drowsiness, and mental sluggishness. Do you have any questions with regards that would have popped into your mind when we were speaking about that? Hmm?
Bhante, can I just
Mm-hmm.
thinking a bit
Oh,
laterally? These chittas and the chetasikas,
mm-hmm.
because these are all energy in forms of vibrations and frequencies. So if the chetasikas, which we know are unwholesome chetasikas, whether they are pakinnakas or Vidisabhata, whether they are universal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those which are unwholesome, they have very low energies like doubt and regret and a lot of the others, envy and things. So the dosa chatuke and the TNB,
So,
the three things on those. So when you get into those, the energy levels are very low because of the very dark, the very concentrated, very low frequency. So therefore, in such a state, the energy levels will go down.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
When sloth and torpor rises, the energy levels go down.
Yeah.
As a result of that, the materiality that arises as energized or supported by mind will also be of a lower energy level, which would mean that within the body, the earth element would be more, the
Oh,
fire element will reduce, and the wind element will reduce together with it, creating a more sort of difficult to move, sort of sluggish, heavy body. We have all experienced that, isn't it? Right? That sort of tenseness in the body or heaviness in the body as a result of it. So these nivarnas, just like the other, even kama chanda, even the desire for sensuous pleasures or vyapada, in the same manner, bodily effects take come into place when this becomes a cause for the arising of that condition. The way to cut that cut
Mm.
it in the is having a mind able to realize or see through it at that moment where it arises, right? At that moment where it arises. So this might also be an attitudinal change, a taking up of better sort of lifestyle, maybe, right? Change of attitude by way of which we maneuver ourselves daily. It could be a number of things. However, at the end, you're creating a more active lifestyle, and also through your mind, the discernment ability of the mind to catch these things as it arises, right? As it arises. And what bhikkhus is the food for the arising of unarisen, restlessness and worry, uddhacha kukkucha, and for the growth and abundance of arisen, restlessness and worry, uddhacha kukkucha. There is bhikkhus the lack of mental calm, right? The lack of mental calm. Frequently giving unwise attention to them is food for the arising of unarisen restlessness and worry, and for the growth and abundance of arisen restlessness and worry. Right? Now, this is referring to Uddhacha Kukkucha, which is a state that might come across within our minds often when we have some sort of worry, something that we refer to as a worry in our life, right? In a state of that sort, everyone, you might find the arising of restlessness, uddhacha, and kukkucha. The reason for the arising of uddhacha and kukkucha at a position of worry is because of the desperation that through which we desire preferred outcome. Hmm? A preferred outcome, because we do not have enough to say that this is going to be for sure, because there might be so many facets which would determine a positive outcome of the scenario or situation, we worry. This attachment to that end or a preferred state or outcome, in the sense, or what could have been, even through a past object, present object, future object. In two, three ways we can cling um, to past, present, future. When this clinging is present and when the object is often beyond your control, you would find the arising of Uddhacha and Kukkucha. Uddhacha and Kukkucha. The food for the arising of Uddhacha and Kukkucha, which often gives rise to, then when Uddhacha Kukkucha Oma වැඩි වෙලා, it will increase, or it will persist. Rather, then arises, let us say, Vyapada. Then arises Vyapada. Now, if anyone, now you're worrying and a word that arises or something that is said, then comes Vyapada. Why goes against the worry? Because of the heaviness of that worry that is present. Now arises Vyapada. Then, if Vyapada does not arise, or after the rising of Vyapada, then Kama Chanda will again arise. To what? To balance the mind through the Kilesa itself. To balance the mind through the Kilesa. When the hate is getting too much, must balance the mind with the Kilesa. So reminding the mind of a positive object, that is the preferred outcome. No, this will happen, the preferred outcome. In such manners, it will not be one hindrance, but several hindrances arising and ceasing simultaneously, one after another. Because when those hindrances appear, especially in a scenario where we refer to the hindrances as a ogre, a flood, or a yoga, a bond, a flood or a bond. Now these things sweep us away like a tsunami or a wave hitting or crashing against the shore and wiping everything, signs of life away. Just so these ogres, floods, they sweep us away, as we have already learned. In such sorts of scenarios, to sweep us away, often when one hindrance arises, then the other hindrances follow as the conditions for it arises and ceases. So restlessness, this sense of restlessness and worry creates a scenario of instability in the mind. One must note that this instability is not permanent. This instability is not in everything that is external. This instability exists within one's own mind. When you allow the floods, the ogre or the yogas, the water to just sweep away itself, to dry away, there you realize that you have now worried and you shouldn't have, because now that flood has passed. But during that flood, when the right attention, prajna, discernment ability is present, during this time, we realize that this is the time to be strong, where one does not fall into worry, but one maintains sati and awareness. Sati and awareness in the present, not in a preferred outcome, but in the present. There is, bhikkhus, the lack of mental calm, frequently giving unwise attention to them is food for the arising of unarisen restlessness and worry. Now, without mental calm, you're thinking about something, right? Distressed, distressed, let us say. Distressed, let us say. Because this state of distress is present and you're thinking with this state of distress, the mind is going from one object to another, one object to another, bouncing off one object to another, one sanya to another, one vedana to another, trying to find through the distress, what is this distress? Unwise attention. There a person takes a step back and notes that this is the lack of mental calm, leading to even more uddhacha and kukucha. Leading to even more uddhacha and kukucha. For example, if we take a practical example, let us say we hear news of someone who is not well. We hear news of someone who is not well. Now, you're going to the phone to dial up this person, let us say, someone that is close to the person or the person themselves. And whilst dialing up the phone and whilst the phone is ringing, and through this period, the mind is going from one scenario to another, one scenario to another. Huh? Would this be it? Did this be it? Would this be it? The mind running from one scenario to another. Now that is frequently giving unwise attention to the object. Hence the arising of the restlessness that follows. The restlessness that follows. When one is with the phone, one is with the phone, waiting for the phone to be answered, not giving unwise attention to all the different other possibilities, being in the present moment and being able to discern. Through discernment, how the mind works is different to how one would work with restlessness and worry. Restlessness and worry, like all the other hindrances, are fueled by akusala dhamma. And what bhikkhus is the food for the arising of unarisen doubt, vicikiccha, and for the growth and abundance of arisen doubt. There are bhikkhus, the basis for doubt. Frequently giving unwise attention to them is food for the arising of unarisen doubt and for the growth and abundance of arisen doubt. Now, what are the bases for doubt? What are the bases for doubt? The basis for doubt is, let me see, Vichikiccha Taniya Dhamma. කියලා මෙතන තියෙනවා footnote එකේ. The foil six conditions are the basis for doubt. One, little learning. Little learning is where may the Dhamma you have little learning in the Dhamma. Right? Little learning in the Dhamma. Two, lack of questioning. Lack of questioning. Right? Lack of questioning, investigation into the points of Dhamma. This is where one, through questioning, one is able to learn and overcome the doubts that one has. Overcome the doubts that one has. So the lack of questioning, it forms a base for doubt to arise. Right? Little learning is where you know little about that specific thing. Right? The third, ignorance of monastic or lay Vinaya practice. Ignorance of Vinaya practice. This is to say, monastic or lay. This is to say, when one sila is blemished, right? If it is blemished, now you're unsure. Right? You're unsure. Did I do a right thing or did I do a wrong thing? Right? Did I do a wrong thing? Right? Was my intention pure at that moment? Let us say it is even something like that, or directly a Vinaya issue. Right? Or directly a Vinaya issue. Now, in a place like this, the mind is unsure. No? Hence, doubts can arise with regards to your personal virtue. Right? With regard to your personal virtue, that is what is mentioned as the ignorance for the Vinaya practice, monastic or lay. Right? When you are unsure of that, then doubts may arise in your mind with regards to your own virtue, hence affecting your way the mind adheres to you as well in your meditation. That might become a hurdle there for the person as well. Hence, this ignorance of the Vinaya practice all comes back to this learning, part of knowing and clarifying, through investigation. The fourth, the lack of conviction. Right? The lack of conviction to the spiritual practice. This is when, let us say, you are trying, right? Let us say you've taken you're doing your seated meditation practices, let us say, like clockwork every single day, right? You're sitting, and you're making time for your practice. And whilst this is so, let us say this is an hour of your day, right? In the morning before you go to work or do anything else, this is what you do. Now your practice, an hour of your practice is certainly being done. However, through the rest of your day, the commitment that you have to the spiritual practice or the commitment that you have to deepening your practice is not seen. So then what happened? Yes, you meditate in the morning, but because the sammasati is not being brought into mind, or you're not trying to connect the dots with it, so you have this time of the day that you're falling away from the practice, let us say. right? Or it is not coming to mind, or it is not something that affects or is brought to mind with regards to what your actions and behaviors are. They are the meditator or this person thinks, I'm meditating every single day, but I'm not seeing any palpable difference. Hmm? I'm not seeing a difference. Now, within this person's mind, a sense of doubt starts arising. Is this actually working for me or is it not? Right? Is the meditation working for me? Is it not? I'm trying very hard. However, I'm not developing in my practice, or I'm not seeing something that I'm happy about. Right? That lack of conviction to the spiritual practice then goes to create that sense of doubt, right? Sense of doubt whether this works or not, right? Now, the fifth one is evil friendship. Evil friendship here, taking one away or creating doubt or creating shame, um, creating shame or disgust or creating a funny sort of attitude within you to say that you're not normal for doing, this or that or this or that, right? May evil friendships that could take or create that sense of doubt in you. And I think evil friendships in this sort of way, we learn how to also balance when living with the world in how we communicate or what we do communicate. Sometimes when it comes to, our meditative journeys or whatnot, but we do, of course, see persons who can very well sort of put you off as well. So that is evil friendship. And then six, frivolous talk. Hmm? Frivolous talk. Here, this sense of sammavacha is brought into this basis for the arising of doubt. Hmm? Sammavacha, through what is spoken, through this useless empty speech that is spoken, again, the effects that can be seen upon one's own mind as a result to which affects our own practice, creating that sense of doubt in the practice or towards one's own practice, right? So there are bhikkhus, the basis for doubts. Frequently giving unwise attention to them is food for the arising of unarisen doubt and for the growth and abundance of arisen doubt. This doubt is serious. It is not something to be taken lightly. And the Buddha actually says when this doubt increases to a level where one is unable to really walk the path anymore, this walk the path anymore, this person grows to become almost a foundation pillar of samsara, because by no means can this person in any way leave it or work towards that salvation because of this doubt, this element of doubt which has made foundations within that person's mind. These bases of doubt, when it comes to these bases of doubt that we've gone across, these areas can contribute to something far more greater. Now, for example, when someone is trying to come into the Dhamma, hmm, when someone is trying to come into the Dhamma or is going through a period of tough questioning, hmm, with the Dhamma, we often see these things happening. When with the death of a loved one, if when a loved one passes in a very pious family, there are some families who often question their faith and wonder why this happens to us in different ways. These persons who go through this time of questioning, they have to be supported, and also a big part of that supporting is also for oneself the openness to learn. When thoughts arise, when views arise within one's mind, when those views arise established, concluded, then those views are very difficult to get rid of because you think upon thinking, you're concluding upon them. When the mind has a more open approach, okay, I might not be knowing much of this right now, so I can't really come into conclusions. But let us see. Keeping an open mind helps to deter the effects of doubt growing because through that openness, you're not closing the subject and you're being hasty into coming into a conclusion against it, but this willingness to learn opens up the possibility for great achievement to come, even with the Dhamma. Even with the Dhamma. And anything else. Now, food for the awakening factors. Do we have any questions that anyone would like to ask? And what bhikkhus is food for the arising of unarisen awakening factors of mindfulness? Sati Bojjhanga. Food for Sati Bojjhanga. And the growth and abundance of the arising awakening factors of mindfulness. There are bhikkhus, the basis for the awakening factor of mindfulness. Sati Sambodjhanga Thaniya Dhamma. Frequently giving wise attention to them, this is the food for the arising of unarisen awakening factor of mindfulness. Right? Now, Vichikichataniya here. The rising of the awakening factor of mindfulness. The first one, mindfulness and clear comprehension. Wise attention to mindfulness and clear comprehension. That is sati itself. So keeping at sati, arousing sati and bringing the mind into clear comprehension, sati sampajanyam jivatim. The second, the avoiding of persons with confused minds, right? The avoiding of persons with confused minds. Third, associating with persons who keep mindfulness ready for application. Fourth, inclination towards mindfulness, right? Inclination towards mindfulness. The second one, the avoiding of persons with confused minds. This is the right opposite of sati. Like restlessness, where the mind does not have one specific object. However, the mind lays within a state of confusion over what is, right? Here, such sort of behaviors or such sort of ways of life is a direct effect upon a sati mat or a mindful life. Here, to avoid the person with a confused mind is to usually when the sati or when one is gravitating towards sati, this often happens naturally, where we deter away from persons who have those tendencies of mind, not because of any form of harsh or aggressive thoughts that we might have towards this person. However, the natural sort of what we are attracted to changes as company, isn't it? As company. However, when we become or when we start valuing attention, mindfulness, in a sense where we are trying to sort of grow it more, we feel connected and attached, more connected two persons who share that wavelength of mindful living and mindful being, right? And here, when one is with Dhamma practitioners, one could also very easily feel safer, right? Feel safer. This sort of um, um, vibration or this sort of trust often exists within, the meditating monks, where when you know that the other monk is also, let us say, a forest dweller, or is also a meditator, or is a vipassana meditator, or is constantly with the practice, right? Whatever the meditation might be, you feel connected to them and at peace or safe with these beings, right? So the third one, associating with persons who keep mindfulness ready for application, meaning a person who has the tool of mindfulness with them to be applied and to be used as necessary at that moment with whatever object that arises there. Hmm? Being a tool that is ready for use. Number four, where the being has an inclination towards sati or sati sampajanya, to living with that sati or sati sampajanya. Hmm? Sati or sampajanya. These are the four conditions, right? These are the four conditions mentioned in the sutra as sati sabbhujjhanga thaniya dhamma. Hmm? Frequently giving wise attention to them. This is the food for the arising of the unarisen awakening factor of mindfulness, and for the growth and abundance of the arisen awakening factor of mindfulness. And what bhikkhus is the food for the arising of the unarisen awakening factor of Dhamma investigation, Dhamma Vichaya Sambojjhanga, and for the growth and abundance of the arisen awakening factor of Dhamma investigation, Dhamma Vichaya. There are bhikkhus, wholesome and unwholesome states, blameworthy and blameless things, low and sublime states, and dark and bright states, the counterpart of each other, frequently giving wise attention to them. This is the food for the arising of unarisen awakening factor of Dhamma investigation, and for the growth and abundance of the arisen awakening factor of Dhamma investigation. Right? Now, what do you think this is? There are bhikkhus, wholesome and unwholesome states, blameworthy and blameless things, low and sublime states, and dark and bright states, the counterpart of each other, frequently giving wise attention to them. This is the food for the arising of Dhamma Vichaya. What do you think this might be? How do we understand this? Hmm?
Bhante, this is like the Astaloka Dhamma, that there is duality in both ways. So that if there is one, there is dark, there is light. And if there is wholesome, there is unwholesome. So it's the duality that the Buddha said is always present. So if we have to be mindful and with wisdom, with intuitive wisdom, Sati-Sopra, you have to realize these two states are there. So when we investigate the Dhamma, we have to look at all the all the kinds of the phenomena. It is wholesome or unwholesome because both are always there, Bhante.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So duality. I mean, any other opinion? Anyone else? Udayanti?
I was thinking, Bante, like every time you think, say, wholesome and unwholesome thoughts. So if you have if you're aware that this is a wholesome thought or a unwholesome thought.
Wholesome thought, unwholesome thought. අනිත් පැත්තෙන්
ඒ කියන්නේ?
wholesome thought, unwholesome thought. දැන් මෙතන
Yeah.
wholesome thoughts තියෙනවා, unwholesome thoughts. Blameworthy or blameless. ඒක කොහොමද දැනගන්නේ?
So actions, your actions.
What are we are going on? Dhamma Vichaya. Dhamma Vichaya is another word for prajna, discernment. So, එහෙම හිතුවොත් blameworthy, blameless. ඔතකොට කොහොමද කියන්නේ? How do we understand it then?
So it's not the actions. When you're doing something, you can think, is this going to be blameworthy or blameless?
Okay, so the discerning ability of the person, to know the wholesome and the unwholesome, blameworthy and blameless, the low, the sublime, the dark, the bright. This mind is not tricked. This mind is easily illuminated because of what? Because of Dhamma Vichaya Bojjhanga. Because this light of Dhamma is present, when the person sees, that person is able to relate or to disengage from something connecting to what it truly is. So, if it is a wholesome state, the person knows the wholesome state as a wholesome state. Then, මෙතන when the Dhammavicaya becomes or further matures within a person, the person, just as knowing the object, knowing the nature of the object, how the object is coming through, right? The person will not be fooled by the object, right? The person will not be fooled by the object. So whether this is a pure volitional chetana, or whether this chetana is tainted by kusala and akusala. For example, let us say I want to do the dana, however there is lobha, I want this to be in this manner. Within this person's mind, as the mind matures, a person is able to see the wrong as wrong, the right as right, the blameworthy as blameworthy, the blameless as blameless. That is Dhamma Vichaya, the penetrative ability of the person. The
So is that
penetrate.
linked?
Sorry.
That's linked to the mindfulness as well, isn't it, Bhante?
Balanced by the mindfulness. Now, as a factor of awakening, if you remember, prajna is the most powerful factor of awakening. Prajna, the ability of discerning. That ability of discerning. Now, sati, if we say Udayante, sati is an important factor. Sati is one of the balancing factors there.
Yeah.
It is with sati that one comes to be able to at least come close to seeing reality as it truly is, without the restlessness, without the worry, without the doubt, without those factors impeding upon this present moment. Right? Here within this present moment, when the Dhamma is live within oneself, now the Dhamma it's poignant, it's working, it's beating as a heart in you, right? Working with moment to moment, knowing the wholesome as wholesome, unwholesome as unwholesome. This means make for Dhammavicaya to work so smoothly and so let us say, I'm going to say so dhammically, right? And I'm going to explain that. Because if you would take the ones who only read the book, right? Who only read the book, there is something missing, right? There is something missing. And in the portrayal of the Dhamma, in the teaching of the Dhamma, මේ පොතට වඩා යන්න අමාරුයි. And we can also see, let us see because of the lack of practice, the aggression that might be present in presenting, right? On the other hand, when there is the Dhamma element of the knowing of the Dhamma, and then the seasoned practitioner, a good control of the Dhamma knowledge and this flow of Dhamma operating there that aggression is lesser, right? That aggression is lesser. Maybe that aggression is lesser because it is coming through another side which is together with the practice. For sure, it will be different. For sure, it will touch a different side. However, when the prajna element of Dhamma Vichaya works in that second group of persons, not in the first. Not in the first. Because even a Dhamma, Karuna, can be taken through a Lobha Mula Chitta, can be exalted upon through a Lobha Mula Chitta as well. Right? Now, that same Dhamma can be taken as object and taught by a three-rooted consciousness, the purest form of consciousness that is possible for us within the Kama Loka. Bhumi. Three-rooted consciousness with nekkhamma, with the sense of letting go, with loving kindness, with compassion, the words that are being spoken. ඒ විදියට යන්නත් පුළුවන්. But we know that the Dhamma can be taken as object by a Lobha Mula Chitta as well. Here, this Dhamma Vichaya works in one where the Dhamma is working live through that three-rooted consciousness with the kusala. That is where the Dhamma Vichaya, not through the Lobha Mula, just for the reason of racking up knowledge, that does not work as Dhamma Vichaya here. That Dhamma Vichaya comes through the practice element. And where now the Dhamma has stabilized itself or is present in every form is something that is live within us with so much of understanding with practice. With practice. Now, the third here. Commentary adds the following 7 conditions that leads to the arising of the awakening factor of Dhamma Vichaya, Dhamma investigation. Commentary adds the following 7 conditions. Number 1, investigative questioning. Hari, investigative questioning. Now, this investigative questioning is with regards to Skandha, Ayatana, Dhatu, Satcha. The aggregates, the elements, the sense basis, investigative question. දැන් වෙන දේවල් පිළිබඳව නෙමෙයි සම්මුති ලෝකයේ පිළිබඳ investigative question මෙන්න මේක ස්කන්ධය with regards to the aggregates, with regards to the sense bases, with regards to the elements, with regards to the Four Noble Truths, with regards to the Eightfold Noble Path, with regards to the understanding of this Dhammatha which is present right here, the mind's investigative questioning nature that is present there in that nature. Remember, this is Dhamma Vichaya. Right? Dhamma Vichaya. එතකොට මේ, how does this happen if this happens? How does this happen if this happens? What if this happens? This nature of the mind questioning the Dhamma to understand this reality more. Investigative questioning. The second, purification of the basis. Purification of the basis is, everyone, personal and environmental cleanliness. Now, for a person who is working to clean the mind, right? To clean the mind, to cleanse the mind of impurities and hindrances, such a person also cleaning the mind, the body also needs to be in a place, in a position where that suits that cultivation, right? In a manner. This is to say that the body should also be in a manner, even if it is a small place or whatnot, even that place it is clean. The environment and the basis. The environment and the basis where the environment is conducive to the practice, to the mind that is discerning, to the mind that is active, to the mind that is not sluggish, to the mind that values what is discerned, to the mind that values this inquiry made into what is of the now, into what is of reality, right? It is referring to that personal egochara bhumya, the purification of that basis. Now, within that basis, because you live there, because your body is there, because that is where you habitate, here you get all the sense spaces are also impinged from this place. In this environment, the sense bases are impinged. Because of that, maintaining or having that clean environment allows for the mind, for the practitioner to focus on things or be with things, to proceed with the Dhamma. Now, the third, balancing the spiritual faculties, which is a section that we've already done, which is balancing the spiritual faculties. When the spiritual faculties are balanced, that is when the mind is able to be with the object of contemplation, right? With the object of contemplation. If what are the five spiritual faculties that should be balanced? Do you remember these five spiritual faculties? Shraddha,
Yeah.
Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna. Shraddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna. Faith, effort, Sati is awareness, Samadhi, concentration, Prajna, wisdom. The balancing of these five enable a meditator to be with the object, right? Be with the object. When the sati, if shraddha, if faith in the practice is too much of too little, faith should be balanced with shraddha, virya. Sati has to be balanced with samadhi. Wisdom, samadhi is balanced with prajna, and sati controls and balances, helps the balancing of all four. Right? Now, the balancing of the spiritual faculties allows the mind to discern what is the mind there also, what is the mind discerning. The mind is discerning balance there, bringing about that sense of balance, isn't it? Understanding that saddha is too much, virya is too little, sati is so, right? This is again a discernment that we are training in, right? Which goes on to help us in the vipassana going deeper. Why? Because the balancing of the spiritual faculties enables the mind to contemplate on vipassana far more deeply, because the mind is able to maintain itself with the object. The fourth, avoiding the foolish. උදයන්ති මේක ගැන මොනවද කියන්න තියෙන්නේ? Avoiding the foolish. How can we avoid the foolish? Here, avoiding the foolish, it refers to, now we are talking about Dhamma investigation. Here, the foolish here refers to those beings who are stuck on the face value of, let us say, the face value of a certain object. ඊට වඩා නැහැ. The mind does not penetrate, or the mind does not go any far more deeper than anything of that sort. Now, when we are talking about then such a deluded person, right, that is what it means to avoiding the foolish, right? Avoiding the foolish. ඕක හරියට පිළිපැද්ද නම් අපේ ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේලාට පන්සල් කරාගෙන යන්නත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? And this is because this is again because this is so true. This is so true because if you're trying to conduct a serious practice and around you you have surrounded yourself with people who are entirely not in the practice, then you are going to stomp on a lot of hurdles because the majority of the people around you, they're not going to be supporting a discerning lifestyle or a cultivation of Dhamma Vicaya, because of the changes or different patterns of view. However, we learn to navigate with Dhamma, with understanding, with all of these cultivations that we do with loving kindness. We also learn to relate to the good side of people, right? Relate to the beautiful side of people in a way that we can connect with an aspect of a person's kindness or an aspect of a person's ability to let go. uh, and because of the way that we connect in these different ways, I think this way of connecting is quite important to make sure that we connect with that respect and dignity and sanctity for those values that are present, because then those relationships that go forward are based upon those values as well, hopefully, right? Number 5, associating with the wise. Number 6, reviving the depth of wisdom. Reviving the depth of wisdom. This is the difference between hard to perceive processes of aggregates, elements, sense bases, etc. Now, this comes to when you're practicing vipassana. Here, this is a quality of vipassana itself, where the Dhamma Vichaya, because Dhamma Vichaya is the ability of discerning, reviewing the aspects of how that prajna is working in the mind, is effectively discerning Dhamma Vichaya and how Dhamma Vichaya takes place in the mind with regards to objects. Here, the differences, culling those Dhammas that were easy to see or difficult to see, are they seen far more frequently or smoothly now? Right? Because if it is difficult to discern, you're going away from the discerning. If it becomes easier to discern or far more smooth to discern, then you're coming closer to being able to discern faster, or your mind becoming far more apt with the Dhamma that is working within it. Right? That is a reviving of the depth of wisdom. Any questions there? Any questions? ඒක තේරුණාද? Now, for example, when you are, let us say, when you're meditating, the mind, there arises a distraction. Earlier, the distraction, earlier one would experience that the distraction would take one away for a long time. Now you realize that you can track the distraction happening as it arises, or shortly after you are able to relate or understand that this distraction has arisen. Now, what does that say? That is the reviving, right? That is the reviving. Now, when you are looking at what type of hindrance is this, right? Earlier, it took longer to discern what this hindrance was. Now, it's far more easy for you to discern what this hindrance is, right? what this hindrance is, because the mind is not wavy, the mind is not restless, right? Because of that, that is the reviving of one's depth of wisdom. When one's wisdom is working and is well and is live with the Dhamma, right? Where the hindrance can come up is lesser, because prajna keeps a tight control of that, or if prajna is at work. Number 7, right resolution. Right resolution is a mind that is bent upon establishing sati. A mind that is bent upon establishing sati, right? Awareness, peeling off the facades or the layers of the onion, right? All of those stories, dittis, views, peeling it off and to find the purest form of sati that is able to observe and be with that object, right? Sati. Now, those are the 7 conditions leading to the awakening factor of investigation, right? Of investigation. Now, the other one, the next. And what bhikkhus is food for the arising of unarisen awakening factor of effort, virya sambodjhanga, and for the growth and abundance of the arisen awakening factor of Dhamma investigation, right? There are bhikkhus, the element of initiative, the element of exertion, the element of strength, frequently giving wise attention to them. This is the food for the arising of unarisen awakening factor of effort, and for the growth and abundance of the arisen awakening factor of effort. Right? Now, what is this? Here, it is referring to the 3 Arambha dhatu, Nikkama dhatu, and Parakkama dhatu, the 3 phases of effort. We have gone over this before. The initial phase, the immediate phase, and the full intensity phase, the Parakkama dhatu, right, of effort. Here, there are 11 conditions that lead to the arising of the awakening factor of effort. 1. Reflecting on the fearfulness of the suffering states. If there are states within this world or beyond that world comes into your comprehension, reflecting upon those states as fearful states and states that should be avoided. Fearful states and states that should be avoided. Okay. Number 2, seeing the benefits of energy. When one does have energy, when one is healthy in terms of one's energy levels that is present in body and mind, right? Seeing the benefits of that, acknowledging its presence. 3, reflecting that one is taking the path taken by Buddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, and Arahats. 4, reflecting on living up to the alms one receives. Right now, that one is for the monks. Number 5, reflecting on the greatness of one's heritage, Dhamma. Number 6, reflecting on the greatness of the teacher. Number 7, reflecting on the greatness of the Sangha. Number 8, reflecting on the greatness of one's colleagues in the early life, Kalyana Mitras. Number 9, avoiding lazy people. Avoiding lazy people, right? What if the laziest person I know is my child? What the laziest person? Then avoiding lazy people. Number 10, associating with exertive people. Mhm. With a sense of balance. With a sense of balance. Associating with exertive people. Right. 11, right resolution, a mind that is bent towards the establishment of effort, right? Establishment of effort. Now, may everyone may, when you say number 9 and number 10, right? Number 9 and number 10, may number 9 may, of course, if you're with another person because they are lazy as well, as lazy as much as you are, right? That is a big problem. That is a big problem. Number 10, associating with exertive people. Exertive people, of course, people with, uh, it's difficult to sort of brand this, because if you would say high energy, it does not mean high energy, right? This is talking about persons who have good effort, right? That they make good effort with the practice, with the Dhamma, right? That is to the eradication of one's hindrances, right? One's hindrances. Now, the eradication of one's hindrances is the main point of the practice. Hmm? Main point of the practice. So it is not exertive people who can be quite tiresome, really. Right? Who can be quite tiresome. Right? Because sometimes I think, having had the privilege of living with wonderful sort of Bhantes, right, who who get up early in the morning, who are fully with the practice, who do not miss a meditation sitting, who are very, very, very serious with the Dhamma. These people can also be the most light-hearted monks, light-hearted practitioners, because of the practice itself. Their staunch dedication to the practice itself makes them so light-hearted with the practice, not with the practice, but in their approach, in the way that they are with the Sammuti world. With the Sammuti world. So, because it says associating with exertive people, this factor of exertive is in the efforts that is made to the getting rid of the hindrances, right? Into the getting rid of the hindrances. Now, this balance is also very important. Right now, when the exertive person is off balance, that also may create encumbrance for the person who is the onlooker, right? So this sense of balance, that people are able to beautifully harmonize their practice with their life so beautifully, right? මෙයා මෙන්න මෙතන කතා කියව කියව යන්නෙත් නැහැ, මේක උඩඟු කරලා කියන්නෙත් නැහැ, මේ වැඩිපුර උමනාවකුත් නැහැ මේක මිනිසුන්ට උගන්වන්න, because they're so secure with the practice in themselves, right? So secure with the practice in themselves. And I think, masters like Ape me Gururatana Swami Hanse, may masters who have existed, may who a few are there still, right? Even Ape me, even the Bhante who passed away quite recently, he was also,
famous
Srihamdar was also so confident in his Dhamma, and he was so much into his meditation practice and all of that. And he had so much of power in himself as a Buddhist monk who I don't know if you know, Premisari Hamdru was in Colombo because Mathenia invited him to be there.
Yeah.
Right at the moment that Mathenia passed away, Premisari Hamdru left. Right, Premisari Hamdru left. However, with all of these connections that Premisari Thero and Theros like him had, all power, isn't it? None of them were concerned with using it or flaunting it or nothing of the sort. That was how secure Bhante, even monks like Renukani Chandavimala Sainhansa. Right, I think Renukani Chandavimala Sainhansa, who was again, a monk at the time who was very much respected towards his older age. People knew who he was. He was so respected. However, he was so confident in himself, his practice, I mean, that that sense of these exertive people are not those overbearing people that not like these their exertive efforts is hardly seen because it's a dhammic exertion. It is a because as we know in the Metta Sutra, me appakicchu appakicchu මේ ධර්මයේ තුල ඉන්න කෙනා අප්පකිච්චෝ බහුකිච්චෝ වෙන්නේ නැහැ කවදාවත්. බහුකිච්චෝ වෙන්නේ නැහැ අප්පකිච්චෝ. right අප්පකිච්චෝ කියලා කියන්නේ what is අප්පකිච්චෝ මේ මොනවද කොහොමද කියන්නේ අප්පකිච්චෝ මේ බහු කාර්යභාර බහුලව නැහැ not busy not busy බහුකිච්ච අප්පකිච්ච බහුකිච්ච නෙමෙයි අප්පකිච්ච a man of little duties.
බාන්තේ සල්ලෝකවුත්තේ කියන්නේ ඒක නේද? කරණීය මෙත්ත සූත්‍රයේ සැහැල්ලු ගත පැවතුම්.
ඕ මේ ඔතකොට මේ අප්පකිච්චෝ කියනට ඔතකොට ඒ කෙනා හැම වෙලෙම මේ මොකද ඒ කෙනා his mind is not striving to be busy to do.
වැඩ තිබුණා කිසි නෑ ප්‍රේමසිරි
අඩුවෙන. එතකොට ඒක තමයි දැන් මෙන්න මෙතන exertive කියනට that type of person. Appakiccha, not the bahukiccha. Appakiccho. That is, it's not as the English word might, of course, say. The depth of meaning that is there is avoiding, when you say avoiding lazy people, this is not to say avoiding everyone who sleeps over 10 o'clock. Right? This is more to say when it comes to that Dhamma and analyzing or making that effort in the Dhamma, the people that are closest to you are also within that Dhamma. Are also within that trying to make those efforts. So you have your Kalyana Mitras around you that are making those efforts, right? Making those efforts. Now, did someone try to say something? Dil, was it you?
No, earlier, Bante, but it's all right. I asked a question later, Bante. But when you did, because it was really referring to the first part of it. Now you're looking at all the things that are strengthening, like the Bojjhanga. But I was looking at when you were speaking about the hindrances.
Yeah.
I had a question, but I'll wait till you finish this section before I ask that, Bante, because otherwise the trend will be broken for the others.
Okay. May Devika?
I was just trying to say about Premasri Hamdro. He was an amazing Hamdro. I have known him for years. So, like you said, he's amazing, Bante. Yes, his teachings, the way he teaches, everything. He was an amazing person.
He was a witty Hamdur. He was to say jokes, a lot of jokes. He makes it very easy.
All right.
Bante, when you were talking about discernment, is it like, I'm just wanting to know, Bante, is it like when we look at the four bases of power, success, the Iddhipada, we talk of that discrimination, vimamsa, is that like
ධම්මවිචය කියලා කිව්වම ඒ විමාංශය වගේම it is a ප්‍රඥා චෛතසික.
Right. Thank you.
The most
And the,
important out of the awakening factors.
yeah, and the other one thing which I was thinking, Bante, when you were talking about all these hindrances, now they're all mentioned as the unwholesome ones, and it's also mentioned as the universal ones and the Pakinaka and the
Yeah.
Sapakitadhan. But මට හැම වෙලේම මේව බලනකොට දැන් බන්තේ කියන හැම එකක්ම තියෙනවා. කොහෙද බන්තේ? No, fear is a big part of a very unwholesome thing. But කොහෙ I can't fathom for myself කොහෙද fear එන්නේ කියලා.
ව්‍යාපාද එක fear එකේ එක කොටසක් තියෙනවා ව්‍යාපාදය තුළ.
ව්‍යාපාදයක
fear එකේ
තියෙනවා.
අනෙක් කොටස worry.
හරි. ඒ දෙකට එන්නේ. හරි. මොකද අපි දන්නවා බන්ති අර ව්‍යාපාදයකට hatred එකයි අනික එක ඔක්කොම enmity and ඒව ඔක්කොම frustration irritation එනවා කියලා. But I wasn't sure because okay, and then we know that Uddhacca and the restlessness comes with the universal things, but others all come through the occasional. Okay, but if you divide the fear into, I suppose anxiety also comes under hatred then, or worry, maybe under worry. ඒව නිකන්
hatred worry වලට එන්නත් පුළුවන්.
හරි හරි.
Depending
Because it's
on
quite different from the hiriyottapna, fearlessness of doing wrong, which are those other unwholesome
ලෝකපාලක ධර්ම.
that is quite a different thing. Hari Bante. You can divide because these are just English words which there are no like unsatisfactory and dukkha. So fear එක නැති වුණාට අර anxiety එක මේ ඔක්කොම hatred එකට එනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් worry එකට එනවා and restlessness. Thank you Bante.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
හරි. එහෙනම් අපි අදට we will stop here everyone and we will continue next week. හරි. මේ එන සූත්‍ර හොඳට කියවගෙන එන්න. මම අලුත් කරුණු ටිකක්වත් ඊළඟ සතියේට උගන්වන්නම් මේ සූත්‍රෙත් එක්කම. එහෙනම් මේ ඔක්කොමලාටම තෙරුවන් සරණයි.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.